Welcome to West Country Wanderings. Hope you're all well. Another one in my Lost Railway series, part of the railway series here on West Country Wanderings. I'm here in Bristol, Bristol Temple Meads. This is Brunel's original station here, which is kind of at 90 degrees to the present day one, which was built later on in the 19th century. I'm actually going to be doing a separate video about this wonderful station here at Bristol at a later date. Part of this is being restored. They've got some scaffolding up on the outside of it. But it's not to this station we're doing today, it's to a lost railway line, sometimes known as the North Somerset Line, but it was actually the Bristol and North Somerset Railway Company, which was desirous of running a railway south here from the city of Bristol into North Somerset to connect up with many coalfields, and also to another railway called the Wilts, Somerset and Weymouth Railway, later on taken by the Great Western Railway. Now I'm hoping to look for a couple of stations or sites of stations on this route as we head south from the city centre towards Brislington, and also to look for a magnificent viaduct as well, which is the key engineering part of the route. As we go along the way, I'll be inserting some old maps, some old photographs, and telling about the history of this line and how it came to be and how it's no longer here. So let's head out of the magnificent station here in Bristol Temple Meads and have a look and see what we can of what remains of the Bristol and North Somerset Railway. I always love this here with the booking office sign taking you into the central concourse with double-8 Smiths, cafe, buffet and ticket offices as well. But we're not heading into this main station, so that'll be for another day. We're going to head out this way. There is a part-time entrance there, which is only used during busy periods, but we're going to head down this way towards what is known as Temple. So we're now looking at the outside of Temple Meads and the original building down there. Currently covered in scaffolding, just see that there. Originally our railway line would have connected up to the original station here, but things changed because of other lines coming in, particularly the Bristol and Exeter line, which had its separate building and offices. They then decided to completely rebuild the station here around about 1870, and it was to the new station that our line, the Bristol and North Somerset, connected up to. But whereabouts? Well, it connected up to the Bristol and Bath Railway, going on to Paddington, of course, at North Somerset Junction. So let's head over in that general direction now, which is kind of somewhere there, but we can't go through this way because of the car park, of course. So let's follow it down there. So this is a navigable section of a connecting canal which leaves the River Avon at Neatham Lock and then goes into the floating harbour here in Bristol. So I'm currently standing on Marsh Bridge, and St Phillips Marsh is on a bit of an island. So our railway would have gone on over this first and then joined up with the Bristol and Bath line actually on St Phillips Marsh Island before crossing over the River Avon on its own bridge before heading south towards Brislington. None of that exists now, it's all been completely obliterated, so you can't really see the site of it, but it would have been kind of in this area. So this, we're looking in the direction of Neatham Lock and the connection with the River Avon itself from here. So this is Feeder Road here, and that's the feeder that goes into the Avon at one end, Neatham Lock and Floating Harbour the other, but we need to go the other side to follow the River Avon itself. And then we're looking back to the railway bridge that goes over the feeder, and there would have been a little lock there as well which goes into what is a present day marina. We're now on the other side of Bristol Temple Meads. It takes quite a bit of walk to get round to this side, and you notice over there it says Bristol Temple Meads because that will become Bristol Temple Meads' brand new entrance, the eastern entrance leading on to the new campus site, which you can see under construction here. Part of the, I'm not sure if it's UWE or the other one, because I know there's two universities in Bristol, so please enlighten me, drop a comment below, please tell me which Bristol University this one will be here next to this new eastern entrance and exit Bristol Temple Meads, which will certainly reduce congestion on the side at Temple Gate. There's lots of building work going along around. I think they're doing some digging for pipes and infrastructure, as well as that university and the new entrance there. So it's difficult to find your way because it's not really marked off, and some other roads around here are closed. But we are on the right route. This here is the River Avon now, so not the feeder. This is the proper River Avon, as you can see there, tidal. And we're heading off down in this direction. Now perhaps you can help me out with this mysterious blue bridge. I've seen this a number of times when I'm on the trains heading south from Bristol Temple Meads down towards Somerset, Devon and Cornwall. What is the purpose of this? Is it been just purely put in for the construction of whatever that is over there? I don't know. But I think here, a bit further up, was the site of the former Bristol Bath Road Railway Depot, a much-missed depot for locomotives, diesel locomotives, to the south side of Bristol Temple Meads Station. Not railway related, but I think this might have been for tying up boats at one time in the River Avon there. Another strange pedestrian bridge here, taking people over the River Avon. Doesn't seem to be used very much. Now here we do have something railway related. It's a triple bowstring bridge. I don't know the year it was put in. It looks 20th century, maybe early 20th century. Fairly recently been renovated, and it connects the lines heading south towards Devon and Cornwall to St Phillips Marsh Railway Depot, which is there on the left hand side, which is where all the Hitachi and other locomotives go to. I think that's where they go to bed for the night. There is another depot at Stoke Gifford, run by Hitachi there, close to Bristol Parkway Station. Yes, it's quite an attractive railway bridge. How often trains go across there, I don't know. If you know about railway operations in and around Bristol, then please drop a comment below. But yeah, so it has been painted, a little bit of graffiti on it now, but it's quite a handsome structure actually. As I say, St Phillips Marsh Depot is there. You can see some of the lights on and all the gantries. And according to the sign there, you can use those steps to get to Totterdown, but we need to keep following the River Avon. So just a few minutes walk from Temple Meads, and it's almost taken on quite an urban appearance here, the river. It's quite quiet too, apart from the plane. I think that's Totterdown just up there on the right hand side of the Avon, or tot up and down, or trot up and down if you prefer. And then we have quite a substantial bridge there going across the River Avon, with the road going into Totterdown there on the right hand side. I wonder where that goes to. Just down in the exposed mud at low tide on the River Avon here, you can just make out some timbers there, perhaps for a long jetty. It does actually go all the way along there. A long time ago actually that would have been used, but timber's certainly still there. Interesting coloured ivy growing up the side of that Avon Bridge there. So that over there is the paintworks on the kind of south side of the River Avon, which is quite a trendy, creative centre there. It's also now the headquarters of the Royal Photographic Society after it moved out and across from the City of Bath a few years ago. So this is our River Avon again. There's an attractive yellow footbridge down there, which is what we're going to be crossing over to make our way south into the southern suburbs of Bristol, and then heading into Baines, Bath and North East Somerset. I'll explain a little bit more about that to do with the terminology, because it crosses over with the title of our railway, but is slightly confusing because of the modern breakup of counties in Somerset these days. So if you're not familiar with this part of the West Country, Bristol became its own county, complete separate county in the 1300s. It's very much its own place here in the West Country. And in 1973, I think it was, a new county called Avon, which swallowed up Bristol, neighbouring city of Bath, also parts of the southern part of the former county of Gloucestershire, and other parts of the county of Somerset. And it took all of it. It was highly controversial at the time. Now later on, People have been campaigning for some time. We want our Somerset back. It was re-divided up and reproportioned up. So now south of the city of Bristol. Bristol is again its own place. But our railway doesn't go to present-day North Somerset, it goes to present-day county of Bath and North East Somerset. Now I know what you're going to say, that isn't a proper county, it's a unity authority. Yes, I'm aware of that. There is still a ceremonial county of Somerset, which includes North Somerset and Bath and North East Somerset, but for the purposes of looking at local government, it is Bath and North East Somerset that we're heading into later part of the walk, but most of it will be here in the city of Bristol. I apologise for it being a little soft and grainy. It's quite dark under the trees here. It's quite a dull morning at the moment. But this is interesting. This, I think, used to be a park here on the northern side of the river, like pleasure grounds in Victorian times. There was a tannery here, which is where our railway, the North Somerset Junction, left the GWR line between Bristol, Bath and Paddington. But yeah, this looks like maybe this used to be a cafe, I don't know. But you've still got those amazing columns still in place. So sadly our footbridge is still closed at the moment. It closed on the 30th of October 2023 and it says it could be closed for up to 24 months, so maybe it'll be opening later on this autumn. On the edge of this park here in St Phillips Marsh, near the A4320 bridge across the Avon, which we'll need to go across because that footbridge is currently closed. Looks like railway fencing. So excuse the road, we've got a road coming out of St Phillips Marsh, joining up with the aforementioned A4320, heading south to Brislington. I think there's lots of industrial sheds around there, isn't there? But our station is actually close to the present day Tesco, so we're going to be heading there next and then joining up with the line. But I think because of the railway fencing here, our railway line was around here, so it may have already left the line at North Somerset Junction, which is kind of over there in the direction of St Phillips Marsh. It's north of that, which is the Bristol-Bath line. But we need to head our way down here, and there would have been originally a railway bridge over the Avon. Now I don't know if there's any remains of it, if the present day road bridge has incorporated any of it. Let's go and have a look. I have here two road bridges, one up, one down. They're both dual carriageway. The other side of that, underneath the bridge, is Bristol Street Motors used car depot base, where they storage some cars there. And just behind that, I think, are some red bricks. And I think that was originally partially the abutment of our road bridge of the North Somerset Line, heading south of North Somerset Junction, Bristol and Bath, in the direction of Shepton Mallet, Frome and Westbury. More about which in a moment. But yeah, so I think it was around here. Now, I say I think because the old OS maps, quite infuriatingly, this area, Bristol, going back to 1885, they're split. So you got a section like it's in a tiny top right-hand corner, and then it suddenly appears in the top left-hand corner of the next map. So yeah, it's all a bit fragmented on the old OS maps in this section, but when we get to Brislington it becomes a lot more clearer. And as we head south there, I'll tell you more about the history of this railway. See you after this break. Well, welcome back. Excuse the rubbish and the litter and the graffiti, but I think these blocks here were once originally part of our railway bridge, perhaps blown up to make way for the new bridge called St Phillips Marsh Causeway and the Avon Bridge. I think it was built in 1994. Maybe the bridge was blown up a little bit before that. So we're now definitively on the line of the railway. It's now the present day cycle path known as Whitchurch Way, which will take us down to the suburb of Whitchurch, formerly village, which would have been originally in Somerset. Now it's in the city of Bristol, but on the edge of Bath and North East Somerset. Now, Sainsbury's over there, the castle is over there, so if you know this part of South Bristol, you'll know all about it. But up here, it looks like we do have something which is of railway nature, though I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's possibly a bridge originally that went over the line here, but let's have a look and investigate further. So buried on the edge of Sainsbury's car park here is an old railway rail there. So standard gauge, the line was built as standard gauge, which created a little bit of a problem, which we'll talk about later. And here is our what would have been a bridge, so I think our railway went on a little bit of an embankment over the top and perhaps this was for the road to go underneath it, heading that way. We need to make a slight diversion, but we'll be following the line of the railway on North Somerset Line shortly. So I was looking back in the opposite direction and say there was an underbridge there. I do think. Let's see if I can find it on the map, but as I say, in this area it's a little bit tricky. So this would have been our line on an embankment, some of which has been grubbed down now, I think. Car park there next to what would have been a factory. So I think this former factory here, I don't know what it made, are now offices of the BCC, Bristol City Council. And this is the line of our railway here on the right. So we have some more railway infrastructure here. This is Sandy Park Depot of the Bristol Waste Company, and our railway went underneath that bridge there, so it's a road bridge. And yeah, so it would have gone right underneath. So this is a great survivor, the most distinguishing feature of the railway here, the North Somerset Line that we've seen so far on our walk today. So that's Brislington High Street down there, town centre, suburb centre, whichever you prefer. Interesting old electricity station there. Well, I say old, I think it may even still be used. Probably built in the 1930s. I'm going to take those steps up there, possibly old railway steps, to have a look down from the old railway bridge of the North Somerset Line. Yes, these steps most definitely of railway origin, including these columns there, posts there, perhaps originally having a gate. Have a look at that. So this is our very handsome railway bridge survivor here. So our railway line, this is looking back towards Temple Meads. You can see very clearly now the route that it would have taken from this bridge, obviously going underneath here through that Waste Depot and Bristol City Council offices down there, back to St Phillips Marsh and North Somerset Junction, right over there. And this is our road here. I think it's called Sand Hill. And of course we need to look on the other side of the bridge. And that down there is looking in the direction of Shepton Mallet. A little bit overgrown now, obviously backing on to people's gardens as you would expect. So you can't walk down on that section, but we will be able to shortly. So I've just been talking to a gentleman there, and he says that the council have got plans to demolish this bridge and build a dual carriageway underneath between Sainsbury's and Tesco's. Yeah, I think that'd be absolutely horrific, because it means that the line would never be able to open again. Fantastic piece of mural there. Not from our railway, but tram days. Brislington tram days, Sandy Park Road. Just love that, it's fantastic. So that's the Sandringham pub there, and there's the High Street of Brislington. And now we're on the edge of Repton Road, picking up the line of our railway again. So I'm just in this row of housing at the moment. I found this gate, and there's a little snook in between a couple of houses here. So it's made of a rail there and a rail on that side. An old railway line is actually, well, would have been down there by the Budlier. You can't get through it, it's very overgrown, there's no right of way down there. But yeah, there's an access path here running between these two houses to get to the old railway line. Interesting. So we have some more railway fencing here. Excuse the traffic noise, I'm on the busy A4 now. And our railway line actually went underneath the A4, which is the main Bristol-Bath road, going on to London, of course, via Chippenham and Cowan and other places. But yeah, so this is another bridge here. My line would have been down in there, very much overgrown, so we can't walk that section, unfortunately. Close to here was the site of Brislington's railway station, our first station on the line as you head south from the city centre. So this was once the site of Bristol Metal Recycling. Now looks like the land is up for sale, so perhaps we're just in time. Bridge is still maintained by the Department of Transport. Let's look over this side, which is taking us back to the city centre. And there, that's our former railway route. I'd say that was used for recycling. Looks like it was used as a car park there. And that's looking back to the last bridge going on. So our railway tracks would originally have gone through there. I say railway tracks, and I do need to correct myself because it was built as single track throughout, but though it may have widened around the station for passing loops. Again, apologies for a little bit of traffic noise. I've got a road going over the bridge behind me, and there, as the platform, you can certainly make out one of the platform edges there. That was the site of Brislington's railway station here on the North Somerset Line. I'll insert a photograph of what it looked like round about now, and there would have been a footpath, no, a platform on that side as well, somewhere over there, but it's kind of a little bit lost in the undergrowth. But it's good to see that though, fantastic. Our first station here on the North Somerset Line. Looks like that the Bristol scrap metal is indeed still open, although it says there's a hoarding there saying it's closed up and it's up for sale. It's still in action, it's just over here actually. There's the scrap metal. There on the left of the screen, and there in the foreground, there, that's our platform again. As I say, I can't see it on the other side. It looks like at some point an access road has been put in there, down from here, which may have grubbed out the original platform. But that's certainly where the base of the platform would have been here for Brislington Station. And there's the bridge that we were on, but it's all been infilled now. But our line would have originally gone on underneath there. Great stuff. This indeed would have been our station approach road. I can make out some railway fencing there as well. It would have come in down there. Present day Tesco's behind these days. And some more rails here which would have been used for, well, not what purpose, I'm not sure. Maybe just stopping cars hitting the wall, perhaps. So we're now on National Cycle Network 3, the Whitchurch way, from Brislington to Whitchurch and beyond. We'll be catching up with the A37, which is the Wells toll road to the City of Wells in Somerset, of course. But we won't be going that far south, we'll just be in Bath and North East Somerset today. So this bit here is traffic free, apart from cycling, of course, using it heading south down into Bath and North East Somerset. There are buses from Brislington, actually you can catch 3 buses to both Keynsham and the City of Bath, but no trains from Brislington Station. So we're paralleling the railway track, what would have been the railway track. Probably hear some bleeping shortly, which is the scrap metal dealership, which we passed earlier on our walk heading south from Temple Meads. So we're heading down this way now. So the railway tracks would have been just in there, the other side of that green fence there, because obviously that is private property. But later on, as we head south on this path, we'll be joining the line of the track bed itself, and then when we do that, I give you some of the history of this line. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to be part 1 of a part 2. I haven't put it as part 1 yet, in case I don't decide to do a part 2. But there are other sections of this railway line that you can walk, particularly around the town of Shepton Mallet. And I'd like to give a shout out now to my YouTube buddy Darren, who runs a channel called Somerset Man Walking, who lives in North Somerset and has recently done some walks around Shepton Mallet looking at parts of the Somerset and Dorset railway that this line connected up to, well, briefly around Shepton Mallet before it went on to Radstock and then Frome, and then connecting up with the Wilts, Somerset and Weymouth line at Westbury. There's that bleeping, that's the scrapyard in there. Now the early history of this line is quite complex. It was an independent railway company, Bristol and North Somerset. There was an act that was passed in 1867 to construct the line to the old Bristol Temple Meads station on a slightly different route to what they eventually came up with. And they were very desirous, and so were the GWR in the early days, quite supportive of connecting up to the line, the Wilts and Somerset and Weymouth railway line, which was an independent company before being taken over later on by the Great Western Railway. And what happened next? Well, there was another act that was passed, and that was to do with lines, tramway lines around the Bristol Harbour, something we've touched on previously here on West Country Wandering. So here our cycle path, number 3, is sandwiched between Callington Road NHS Hospital, which is over there, and Tesco's, which is over on that side there. It's probably looking a little bit burnt out because I'm under some trees at the moment, so making our way south. So nothing happened with that, and as I say, there was a later act, 1869. Did anything happen with that? No, nothing happened with that at all. In fact, the entire company, the independent Bristol and North Somerset Railway Company, went bankrupt, leaving a lot of the shareholders completely out of pocket without a sort of earth or rail being laid. So a new company was founded, and the reason for the impetus of getting this railway built was all to do with coal. In fact, coal was the mainstay of the business of the line rather than passengers, although it did serve passengers, particularly here in the southern suburbs of the city of Bristol. Sorry, it's got a little bit dark now because we're going under a subway which doesn't have any lighting in it, which is there we go. It's effective anyway, isn't it? So yes, not a railway tunnel, it's just an underpass for the road that's above us going in that way. But our railway track bed is just down here. Oh good, it's back in light again now. I'm just going to go around this way. So they really wanted to get connected up to the Wilts, Somerset and Weymouth railway line at Westbury, an important railway junction of course here in Wiltshire, in the West Country Wanderings region. And we've got another one to go under now. So it's down this way before we meet up with our track bed again proper, heading south along here. And so there was a lot of people that were still investing, although they'd had their fingers burnt with the first project never materialised. This time they were going to use the new combined railway station at Temple Meads, which was to serve the Bristol and Gloucester line, the Bristol Exeter line, and of course the GWR to London Paddington, as well as this line, the Bristol and North Somerset Railway Company. So what was the route of our railway? Well, it went from here, Brislington. We're now walking towards Whitchurch along the cycle track in through this housing, which would have been the railway line. And it went up through places like Pensford and Clutton and Hallertrow. So there was also another line which left off at Camerton, which was featured most famously in the film The Titfield Thunderbolt. And later on the GWR connected that up to their own line between Bristol and Bath at a place called Limbley Stoke, but that was all in the future. When did this line eventually open, and who was the engineer for it? Well, on here is a bit difficult to make out where the railway line once went, but there might be a sleeper over there, I think. But it was through here, and obviously it's difficult to imagine because they built a new road called Hither Bath Bridge, and so our railway went there up to that wall, which wasn't there then. Probably a bridge, and that house, which wouldn't have been there either. Rejoined the main bed of the track bed now. It's been time-marked over, of course, because it's a cycle path. And that's our line there, looking in the direction of Bristol city centre. We've just come up this path here. I think this part of Bristol is called, see some noise over there, somebody cutting something. That was the way when you're filming. I think it's called Stockwood, or it's near Stockwood, but we're south of Brislington now. We're on our way to the suburb of Whitchurch, which I believe has a delightful church. So yes, he built the line, much of the line, distinctive tall chimneys on the old stations on the line, of which I think none survive whatsoever, which is rather sad. But the chief engineering claim of Mr. William Clark on this railway line down to Radstock, Frome and Westbury is at a village called Pensford in Bath and North East Somerset. And yes, we're going to be having a look at that today. Well, hopefully. When I get to Whitchurch, I'm not going to walk to Pensford. It's obviously it's on the A337, and you can't walk on the track bed itself. So I'm going to catch a Wells bus, and go down to Pensford to have a look. We'll finish our video there in the village of Pensford. But this is the old track, and I think it may have been down in a little bit of a cutting right down there. So we're on a little bit of a higher embankment here, which is where the cycle track is. It probably gets a bit boggy down there, which is probably why they built it up, to ensure it's dry all year round. But this section of it is very, very delightful. We're well away from the roads now, so it's nice, peaceful and quiet, surrounded by the trees and shrubbery here, and actually get a quite high aspect there from was it Stockwood, which I think is over in that direction. Please correct me if that's wrong on the comments below, because I'm not an expert on Bristol. I don't know the city that well, although I am getting to learn more of it as I do videos in and around the area. You might be thinking, have I ever come across this line before? Yes, I have done a video around Kilmanston, And one of the reasons I did a video around Kilmerston wasn't so much a railway, it's the story of Jack and Jill. And you haven't seen that video, it's really interesting. Well, I think it is, to do with the nursery rhyme. So nothing to do with railways. I'll link to it at the end of this video. And in that, I start the video, I think, near an underbridge, or a bridge underneath this Bristol and North Somerset line. And at that time, the rails were still in place, because that section of the line didn't close until 1973. I'll talk more about line closure dates, because it gets a little bit complicated of this line later on. But yeah, that's our track bed down there. It looks like they've made it into jumps, that type of thing, for BMX bikers, so it's being used. But it's a shame it can't be cleared on in that direction, back towards Tesco's, and a bit further on where we were by Sainsbury's as well. And I think probably because the land was sold off after the line closed piecemeal, so you've got all these individual owners, although not that much of it has actually been built over. So after all those earlier acts, the line finally opened on the 3rd of September 1873 to much acclaim. Earlier parts of the 1880s, the line was bolstered by deep pits at Dunkerton and Pensford, with heavy coal freights coming along the line here into Bristol to serve the needs indeed of this large city, what would have been a very industrial city in those days, of course, and also for the needs going out the other way into Somerset, into the heart of Somerset, and indeed Wiltshire and to other places as well. Now there was a canal, of course, the Somersetshire Coal Canal, which connected up with the Kennet and Avon Canal to, well, further on basically into the River Avon, then Kennet and Avon Canal, and taken freight on. So by connecting to the K&A, it could then take the coal out and take it into London and the southeast. But the Camerton branch, which was built, I think, around about the early part of the 1880s, connecting up in the village of Camerton to this line here, also part of the Bristol and North Somerset section. It went on, and that went through a real heart of the Somersetshire coal fields, driving coal, which pretty much put the Somersetshire Coal Canal itself completely out of business. Come on a little bit further south, and I found this gate. I'm assuming it's to do with the railway. I can't be 100% certain. It's certainly old, and probably dated to the latter part of the 19th century. So there it is, gate, and it's just simply propped up against this tree here in Bristol. That's odd, isn't it? There's an access path, but our track bed carries on this way, which I believe goes over a bridge. Now, I was about to say that the bridge still survives in remarkably good condition, but it looks like it isn't. They've cut some trees back recently, but they've got some scaffolding propping up this bridge, which would have been built as part of the Bristol and North Somerset Railway. The City of Bristol itself, the heart of the city centre, should I say, is behind me. That's looking in the direction of Bath and North East Somerset, but we're still in Bristol here. Let's see if we can have a look down the slopes and maybe even indeed walk underneath the bridge. Ah yes, so there it is. I can see why the scaffolding is up now, because on the parapet of the bridge there is a crack, a large crack through the middle of it, which is a little bit worrying. So hence the supports of there. So they've obviously been doing some work on it. Nobody's working on it at the moment. They must be re-watering the brickwork. That's looking at the bridge in the opposite direction. It's just a minor footpath connecting up one part of a housing estate going into Stockwood, I think it was called. But we can rejoin the line of our railway through this slope here to take us into the heart of Whitchurch. Now, a gentleman called the Earl of Warwick had lent the railway company, the Bristol and North Somerset Railway Company, some money to obviously build the track, the stations, the bridges that we've seen en route so far, to construct it all. And he had interest in railways and coal mines and that sort of thing. But it wasn't turning that much profit. In fact, it was struggling to stay alive. And in 1882, the whole thing went to court because he was demanding his money back. I think it was about £113,000, which was a heck of a lot of money back in the latter part of the 19th century. It's still a fair amount of money today, but it was a lot more then, of course. and he wanted his money back. And what that did, a court order, because they couldn't pay, it put the whole railway company into receivership. Now, the trains on the line here were actually run by the Great Western Railway, so they operated the services, but they didn't own the line. They carried on after the company gone into a receivership. It didn't stop going. The money was still coming in from the coal trains. But yeah, Earl of Warwick wanted his money back. Well, you can understand him wanting his money back, because obviously he'd stumped up a load of money to get the line built in the first place, but it just wasn't making a return. But so what happened next? How did the line carry on its operations after the company going into receivership? Of course, the inevitable happened. A couple of years later, the railway was amalgamated with the giant Great Western Railway, as I say, who were already operating the services on this line here between Bristol, Radstock, Frome, Westbury. Yeah, interesting that they then took it over. They had been a little bit caught initially. The first company, which went bust, there's a gate here, railway gate, which went from where to where, I'm not sure, but it's certainly a railway survivor here. There's a gate there. I don't think it's in its original position with the hook on it there, so that's nice to see. There's slightly off the alignment there. I think the alignment is there. Again, one of those parcels of land that was sold off, and someone's extended their gardens across the line of the railway there. But yes, when it opened, after it opened, they went a bit cool on the whole line, because they originally wanted to connect up to the Wilts, Somerset and Weymouth railway line, but they then continued to prefer their line, which curves south out of Bath, following the contour of the River Avon, and the route that goes down through Bradford-on-Avon and Trowbridge and connecting up into Westbury these days, which is obviously still a very major line, very important line here in the West Country Wanderings region. So they weren't keen to use it for their own freight or passenger through services. Here's a couple of more railway related items here. So that's the track bit I've been following now on the embankment. So that's Whitchurch that way, which is what we're going to continue on. That takes us back to Temple Meads. It's an old sleep here which has been used with some wire fencing there, retaining wire. And over here, somebody has used one of the original rails when they were taken up. I'll talk about when later, because it's confusing. And some holes have been punched in, a series of holes there. For reasons I'm not too sure. Some wire has been wrapped around it, but why all the holes? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? So why the confusion on the dates? Well, the railway line closed to passengers in 1959. Freight soldiered on. Most of the line closed to freight in 1964, thereabouts, because that's the date that it says that the viaduct closed at Pensford. However, a section of the line serving Kilmersdon Colliery carried on until 1973, so that's a section up from Frome towards Kilmersdon. Now, the question I have seen a photograph of a train at Brislington railway station, and I'm sure it's dated 1966. So how was that possible? So it's a freight train, obviously not a passenger train. So was it just the middle bit that was closed in 1964, the Pensford Viaduct bit that was connecting up the Bath and North East section to the Bristol section, and maybe they had a stub going to Brislington which carried on? I'm not sure, but certainly 1973 was the official date that it closed. In terms of the last train though, what was the last passenger train on this line, and where did it go from and to? Well, I found that out as well. So in 1959, on the 31st of October, if you've been at Frome railway station there in Somerset, fantastic Brunel Shed station, still is, wonderful survivor there. The last train left at 9:25 a.m. from Frome, heading north on this very railway route that I'm walking now, up there to Bristol Temple Meads, and that was it as far as passenger services on this line closed. And then, of course, all the stations were closed. When I say we had all that coal still going, particularly from Kilmersdon, which was a very profitable and big quarry there in Somerset. Now, the suburb of Bristol that we're currently walking to along the line of the Bristol and North Somerset Railway didn't have a station when the line opened. It was opened as a halt on the 1st of January 1925, and I think because of that it probably just had wooden platforms. It was only one of those pagoda shelters perhaps. See if I can find a photograph and insert that now so I can show you what it's like. very close to the A37 road, so we might be able to find the location of it, but I don't think there's going to be any remains of it. And I think that opened because Whitchurch had grown. Originally it would have been in Somerset, and of course Bristol getting bigger, it kind of swallowed up Whitchurch. Bristol expanded its borders, and now just south of Whitchurch is where you enter present day Bath and North East Somerset. So it would have only been open from 1925 indeed when it opened, to 1959 when the passenger services closed. So it's only about 35 years or so was the station opened here in Whitchurch. So we'll go down there, we'll have a look at the village briefly, and well, not the village, the suburb briefly, before we jump on a bus and then have a look at the amazing Pensford Viaduct, which is, as I say, the greatest civil engineering feat of the entire railway line here. Interesting plaque here, the Whitchurch Railway Path, and it says that Whitchurch remained an agricultural community until well into the 20th century, untroubled by the industry that was to the north of where I currently am in the city of Bristol. That was then the city of Bristol. Of course, this is now the city of Bristol here, but it didn't become that till later on, because this was a very rural and agricultural area, and it says about it carrying coal from the Somerset coal fields. And there we have a photograph of the station here in Whitchurch. There it is, and with its pagoda halt, as I say, which opened as a halt in 1925, and it made for the first time commuting possible between here and the heart of Bristol. And they also did excursions to London and the seaside. And here's one of those there, Saturday, October. Can't make out the year, it's a little bit damaged, but comes from the Whitchurch Local History Society there. And the return third class fare was 6 shillings. And that was from here, from the halt at Whitchurch, all the way through to London Paddington. So the time, I can't quite make it out, so 11 something or other, and it arrived in Paddington 3:40, I think that's 3:40 p.m. And the return train left Paddington at 12:20 am, early on a Sunday morning. Yeah, so maybe they did that over a bank holiday, I'm not sure. Or, oh yes, it was on the Saturday, wasn't it, it left. So interesting, take your ticket and round. That's an amazing piece of railway history there. Another piece of history, not railway, but viaduct history, is this amazing viaduct here in Whitchurch, which is that here, known as the Saltwell Valley Viaduct, which was built by the Bristol Turnpike Trust back in 1850, and they had to pay a toll to go on the Wells Turnpike to the city of Wells in Somerset. So here it looks like it's the end of the line as far as our cycle path is concerned. Well, certainly in terms of it following the line from Bristol to Frome. So we need to make our way off to the left. There's a useful sign there. So we've come 5 miles from the city centre, about just over 4 from Temple Meads, I guess, 1.5 from Brislington. It's 5 miles to Chew Magna and 23 miles to the city of Wells. Unbelievably, our railway track actually went through there. You'd never know it now. All the trees have grown up since the line closed, 1959 stroke early 60s. But the path is there alongside it, which is now tarmacked. So though we're just off the line of our railway here, this is a delightful path into the heart of the suburb of Whitchurch here in Bristol. Wonderful trees around here, and it's a wonderful green corridor that we've been following as well. Certainly after we've gone south from Brislington, where things got a lot quieter and more peaceful character, because obviously this was a very rural area until right up in, I guess, probably the 1920s, and then things obviously busied up, but still very, very quiet and pleasant. Got open fields on both sides. This should take us down to the church and the main A37, so the main Wells Road, or you can cycle on this to Wells as well, which would make a nice cycle route. Okay, no problem. Just letting some cyclists through there. Well, we're going to finish off sort of in Whitchurch, and then we'll carry on down to Pensford. I think our railway came here, so it came in that way. Probably a bridge here originally, it's filled in now. And well, there's nothing to see on the other side. Bridge gone, just garden fencing. Here's a traffic noise, it's the busy A37, the Wells Road. And our railway line here in Whitchurch went under this bridge here, underneath the A37. Now, I think Whitchurch Halt, as I say, of which there are no remains, was on the other side of it. Sadly, that's now private gardens, and there's literally nothing to see. That's the entire bridge there, as you can see. And our line of our railway here went along there, down to Pensford, which is where I'm going to be heading shortly. So I'm currently by Whitchurch churchyard here. Delightful. Some of this dates back to the 12th century. A little bit of confusion here because I'm seeing wheelie bins, refuse bins with B and NAS, Bath and North East Somerset on them. I was led to believe Whitchurch is in Bristol. Well, it kind of is and it kind of isn't. It's a little bit complicated. Whitchurch Park, which was a large suburb that was built into war years and expanded after the Second World War, is in Bristol, which sits here in this suburb of Whitchurch. The heart of the village here, though, is actually in the original county of Somerset, present day B and NES. So yeah, kind of a division through this suburb stroke village stroke Bristol stroke Somerset, whichever one you prefer. Either way, really nice church. Anyway, what I'm going to do now, because I can't follow the railway line south from here because it's been grubbed out and ploughed out, you can't make it out. But what we want to look at is, of course, the viaduct at Pensford, which I've never seen properly. I've seen it on a bus heading to Wells from Bristol, but I've never actually explored it properly. You can't walk on top of it, I don't think, but I've never had a good look at it. So that's what we're going to do now, and catch a bus down to Pensford. Well, I now come round to the beautiful Somersetshire village of Pensford. Now in Bath and North East Somerset, there's no argument here, we're definitely not in Bristol anymore. This here is Pensford Church. You can see that behind me there. And the reason I've caught the bus here, it's on the main routes, well, to Bath and Bridgewater and Wells and Yeovil, so there's quite a frequent bus service on the A37, although it was very busy back there in Whitchurch where they're doing gas pipes work. Just to the right of me here is what we've come to look at, which I'll show you in a moment. That down there, in fact on both sides of the churchyard here, is the River Chew. Now there was some damage done to what I'm going to show you in 1968 here in Pensford, and along the Chew Valley there was a massive flooding event. The bridge over the A37 was completely taken out. I've noticed that one there I've just walked over was rebuilt in 1969, a year after the flooding event. But today it's a very peaceful and quiet little village, although it is obviously on the A37. But once you work away from that, yeah, it's glorious. Some lovely cottages with flowers, and you've got the babbling River Chew there in the heart of the Chew Valley here in Somerset. And one of the things I like to look at when I do the Lost Railway walks is, are there any plans to reopen all or part of that particular line, in this case the Bristol and North Somerset Railway line? Well, it has been looked at, particularly the section between Frome and Radstock. So Radstock obviously doesn't have a railway, Frome does. Frome is quite a large town in the eastern part of the county of Somerset. Radstock obviously in present day Bath and North East Somerset. I think it's fair to say that Radstock and around there, obviously ex-coal mining communities, is a bit of a underdeveloped and deprived area somewhat. To help boost the economy of that and to link it better connections into the railway network at Frome and Westbury, etc., it's probably a good idea to do that using the railway. So they have looked at that. Part of that line is now the Collier's Way cycle and walking trail, and say part of it wasn't actually closed that long ago. Say when I was there doing my Jack and Jill video, the rails were there. Some of it was still in place, some of it had been moved aside as they were progressing along with constructing the Collier's Way. That's Sustrans, of course. So that section definitely is being looked at as being a potential contender for reopening between Frome and Radstock. Now, what about the section we've been looking at today between Bristol, Brislington and Whitchurch? Well, part of it, obviously, it was sold off piecemeal, which is always a silly thing, I think, to do. It's heavily developed between Temple Meads till you get into Brislington, hence why I didn't look for North Somerset Junction around St Phillips Marsh there, because that's all been completely redeveloped. Industrial units and retail units and parks and all of that and new roads. It just doesn't exist. We only just saw that little bit of abutment there as it crossed over the river. But yeah, so a couple of plans there. Maybe a light railway down to Whitchurch or Brislington from the city centre could well be useful, but long term I think, because they'd have to do compulsory purchase of that land, I think an early contender would be the bit between Frome and Radstock. So the amazing Pensford Viaduct, 330 yards long, designed by William Clark and built by J. Perry and Sons, a company called Tredegar Works. Now you're probably thinking that's South Wales. Not. Actually, Bow, East London. That's strange. I've not come across that before. Probably got original connections to the South Wales valleys, I would imagine. But Tredegar Works, they built that incredible structure there. Stone and brick supporting beneath the arches underneath, and yeah, when you walk there is a footpath takes you up to a woodland trust little reserve woodland there just on the other side of that. You can get right up underneath it. Insert some B-roll and photos now so you can see what that's like. So that's it, the Bristol and North Somerset railway line from the city of Bristol at Temple Meads to here. Well, it obviously didn't end here at Pensford. It went on via Clutton and Hallertrow, lots of other places, to Shepton Mallet and thence on to Frome. Now it joined up with the GWR mineral line that goes into, which is still open in fact, to Whately, I'm never sure how you pronounce it, Whately Quarry, just on the edge of Frome. And it joined that there at Great Elm. Now this is why I'm talking about the gauge. This was built in parlance, so then it was called narrow gauge, obviously present day standard gauge, but the other lines in the area, the GWR lines, of course they were broad gauge. And when it met up at Great Elm there on the edge of Frome, you had two different gauges, of course. But this line was the original standard gauge, so it meant it was ahead of the game in terms of gauge when they were changing over. Remember Gloucester there on the Bristol-Birmingham, or Gloucester-Birmingham section, and then the Gloucester-Bristol section. They had to change over. All of the luggage and passengers had to change there. The trains couldn't go directly from Bristol to Birmingham like they can now because of the change of gauge, and they had that problem here as well. But Great Elm, where I think it's about 3 miles, I remember doing something near there when I did my monthly vlog from the village of Mells, not Wells, Mells there. Well, that was about 3 years ago now, so I remember seeing the tunnel there of the Whately Quarry and the train going through it. But I do hope to return to this railway line again, this lost railway walk, because there is a section you can walk on through Shepton Mallet. Now obviously the criteria of doing the lost railway walks is you can actually walk on part of the track bed, so that met that criteria here because of the section between Brislington and Whitchurch. The Whitchurch Way, of course, in the southern suburbs of Bristol, so it does need to meet that. There are other sections of it, but most of it has been ploughed out and no longer walkable, but there is a section there at Shepton Mallet, so hopefully we'll feature that on a future episode here of Lost Railway Walks on West Country Wanderings. Thank you very much for watching today. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I'll see you on the channel again very, very soon. All the best for now. Cheers. Goodbye.